Although Kyle and Anderson might be out to stop the demons, that does not mean that everyone can be saved, as we are given a bigger explanation as to what might be going on. Hey guys, Cameron for Outcast, Season 1, Episode 3, All Alone now, and I know it's been a really long time since I reviewed Outcast, about 4 weeks, but let me explain something. I meant to catch up on this show when I reviewed the second episode. I was going to review the second, then I was going to do the third, and I was in the middle of watching the third episode, and then all of a sudden my dad comes up to me, says, "We're seeing Warcraft." That kept me from doing that. Then other shows came out. I wanted to finish Bloodline, and then last week I was going to catch up on Outcast, but then I realized, oh, it's not on this week, so I was going to wait till this week. And that's when I decided that I'll finally catch up on the show. I have 3 episodes to review. Hopefully I can get to them all today. I don't know if I will. If I don't, definitely this weekend, guys, I will catch up to Outcast. I'm definitely going to review the 4th episode in my next review. I will say that. But I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I think the first 2 episodes were incredible. I really love where the show is headed. And this episode was a little bit different because this was, in fact, a procedural episode. And you guys know most times I'm not a fan of that. I don't like procedural episodes. I don't like the way they're done. However, in this case, I really do think that this show got it right. They understood how to do a proper procedural episode, and I really think it was a fantastic episode. I really did love this episode. Was this episode perfect? No, I did actually have a few problems with this episode that I will get into, but let's just get into it. Starting off with the very stellar opening, which very much reminded me of the first episode. How great that first scene was kind of like this. We meet the character of Blake Morrow. He's on a double date with his friend Luke, who has set him up with a friend of his wife, Terry, and Blake is doing terribly at bowling, we see, and Luke says that they've been police partners for 7 years. Terry says that Blake was police officer last year when he delivered the baby in the back of a police car, and Luke says it should have been him, but Blake just got between her legs quicker, and as he's about to go for another round, the demon takes hold of Blake, continues to do terribly. But what I love about this is that even though the demon's taking hold of him, I think we get some very good background between these characters as to why we should care about them, what's so interesting, because honestly, I really got invested in the story. Blake continues to do terribly, and asks his date if he wants him to put the kitty bumpers in the filters, and she says that she thinks he's doing great. Blake says he feels so much better now that the fat and lonely girl likes him, which Terry berates him for. And after and they really don't think much of it. They just think that Blake's in a bad mood because of what he said. And after bowling, Blake says that he feels so weird. Luke says he'll drive him home. Terry says he's not going anywhere, tells him to lay down, and she says she's gonna run to the store, grab some saltine soup and ginger ale for his stomach. Luke says that he should get his own goddamn wife, and Terry says that she was working on that, but he's not making it very easy. And Blake says any other woman would be a letdown. Blake thanks him as Luke heads out, and Blake says he's sorry about tonight. Terry says to call Lorna tonight, who is the woman he was with, tell her that he's sorry. And Blake says Blake says that he looks down and realizes how lucky Luke is, and Terry says that she keeps reminding him. She goes to get him some tea, but he doesn't let go of her hand, as the demon we see is very slowly starting to take hold of him, so you can clearly tell that something's going on here. And then when he closes his eyes, then abruptly opens them. I mean, it's just, this is a complete wake-up. It is now the demon. Blake is no longer there. He goes right to Terry. She seems completely terrified. He strokes her head, and she tells him to lie down. He kisses her, then tries to rape her right then and there. You can see he's trying to rape her. Knocks him out with the tea kettle, but that does nothing. He then proceeds to rape her. Luke comes home that night and tells Blake he got him chili powder as a remedy to help the sickness, and it's probably one of the most startling scenes we've had so far. He goes into the kitchen horrified, the sight he's met with, and Terry's dead, Blake has killed his wife, and that's the way we start this episode. And honestly, I got so into this story, because we really don't just follow Blake here. We follow Luke, this character that's really just trying to get his friend back and trying to get over the heartbroken loss, basically, which I thought was really well done. We'll get into that. But then we get to my main complaint of the episode. We see Giles with Anderson in the car, and there's no, background as to why this happened. We don't really know, Kyle and Anderson, immediately they're going after this exorcism. You can tell. That's why they're going to visit Luke, and I was not a huge fan of this. I thought that they should have done something a little bit different here, where Kyle and Anderson, they get a call or something like that, but no, that's not what happens. And it's interesting the way this was done, just the way that suddenly they're on the road and there's no, there's nothing before where they get a call or anything like that, but I thought overall this was well done. Basically, Kyle's with Anderson in the car. Anderson asks if the smoking bothers him, and Kyle says it's great, it just adds to all the wonder smells in the car, and Anderson says he's thinking about trying he says he's thinking about trying to add the electric cigarettes like the ones the kids are using, and goes through the various flavors they have. He says he feels that everyone's vices should leave a rotten taste in their mouth. It keeps them honest, and that's what God invented the hangover for. And Kyle says he's an expert and asks if he really thinks he can do anything for this guy, and Aaron says he never walked from a soul in torment, and that includes Sarah. And Kyle says he's not sure where he fits in all this, and Anderson says that he's like the 12 apostles who sent everything forth 2 and 2 and gave them power of unclean spirits. He says Jesus likes the buddy system, and he's kind of like that in many ways, that he's the one that kind of puts things in line, which is interesting. And I really do think they do a great job in this episode, not just focusing on Blake, but also focusing on why is he the one chosen to do this? What makes him so special? We don't really know yet. And Anderson makes this immediate quick stop in the middle of the road. Kyle asks what happened. Anderson sends a picture of his son that flew out the window, and we get a little more in depth with his son here, that there's clearly something going on where I guess he doesn't see his son as much, and Kyle says the only picture that he has. Anderson says to give him a hand. He's about to get the picture. It's run over by a truck. Anderson realizes that it's gone, tells him to get in the car, and we are to assume that the picture is gone, which really does suck. I really did feel bad, but I think they really did a great job with, again, getting us to really care about what's going on here. I really was enjoying that. Thought that was definitely very well done. But then we get a little bit random with the next scene. So then we get what I thought at the time was a random scene. Eventually I realized it wasn't. We see Megan and Mark are having sex, and Holly comes in at the door. Megan tells them to finish in the shower. Holly comes in, asks them what they were doing, and it's just a really weird scene. I thought it was really weirdly done. At the time, I thought it was, but then when we realized why we're seeing this, then I didn't think it was as random. We'll get into that, though. So Anderson and Kyle then drive to a jailhouse, meet with Luke, who asks if they had any trouble finding the place. Kyle says it's pretty hard to miss, and Anderson tells him about Kyle, and Luke asks if they're ready. Anderson says to lead on, tells Kyle to not get too over-eager, just watch and listen to what he says, because he still has a lot to learn. Because, yeah, this is really the first time that they're doing this together. This was just, they both got this call, this wasn't something where Anderson pulled Kyle in. They're doing this together, and Kyle's kind of like, his right-hand man right now, which I do like this, team up. I like seeing these two work together, and they enter the jail. They're told to empty their pockets, anything that could be used as a weapon. The guard looks at his bag, tells him he's gonna have to leave his cross and Bible, and Anderson says they might as well just turn and go back, and the guard says he's not kidding. He'd be surprised at what he could see turn into a weapon. He wouldn't go in there with a paper clip, and Anderson says he needs those things, and Luke says, okay, lets them through with the bag intact, and I thought that was a good scene. I definitely really enjoyed that, because Anderson almost doesn't get to use the cross. It was like, alright, maybe they'll have to use his extras and without the cross and the Bible, but he does let them go through. So Marcus with Giles asks if he could go back to the camp they found and process the scene, and Giles says that there he goes again with the CSI shit. Again, as we know, Mark doesn't really believe in this whole paranormal demon stuff. He doesn't want to believe in that. Giles does, but Mark doesn't, and Mark wants to kind of just treat this as a regular case, and Mark says that he doesn't know, maybe he finds something or give it to the state police. Giles asks who's going to pay that, and says he doesn't even know if a crime has been committed, because he doesn't, and Mark says there's blood all over that place, and Giles says it's from a bunch of cut up animals. Mark says that the carcasses were done outside the campus, and Giles asks what his explanation. They have a Charles Manson living out in the woods behind a farm, and asks if that really makes any sense to him. Mark says what doesn't make sense to him is that he's not so sure nothing happened out there, and Giles asks if he was taught how to use a fingerprint kit at the community college, and Mark says that he was. Giles says if he wants to spend a shift tagging beer bottles and use condoms, then go for it, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to try to find this evidence on his own, because again, he wants to believe that there is a case at hand, while Giles, I think, kind of believes that there's not really a case. He very well knows what's going on, but Mark doesn't really understand what's going on. I do like seeing this. I like seeing the difference between Mark and Giles. While Giles, is kind of the one that believes in this, Mark is the skeptic. He's the one that's looking for a, realistic explanation. It's kind of like the X-Files in many ways, the way that Mark and Giles work, and I kind of like that. I think that definitely is interesting. I really do enjoy that overall, and, I didn't think I was going to be as into that part of the show, but I really am liking where that's going. Normally, I don't love police parts of the show. I just feel they're kind of unnecessary, but this part I really enjoy. I think it works really well, and I like really where they're going with Mark, where really I think they're going to end up showing Mark believing in what's going on. I think that's really where we're going to lead the end of the season, is that Mark is eventually going to realize what's going on. I think we're definitely going to see that as the season goes on. So the guards then lead Kyle, Luke, and Anderson to jail, says Blake is right down there. Kyle says it doesn't seem very official, and the guard says his head count is in 2 hours, and they are not to leave any marks. Luke says that's not why they're here, and the guard says to do what they have to do to make it work. Luke says they heard it was 2 hours, and they go in. Anderson asks Luke if there's anything else they should know before they get started, and Luke basically tells them about how Blake was his partner for 7 years, his best friend. The thing in here isn't Blake, tells them to watch themselves. Let me just say, actor that played Luke was incredible. I really think he did a great job, and they really fleshed out this character to his full potential. Like I said, Blake we're focusing on trying to get the demon out, but I think Luke really is the central character in this story, really, and I'll get into that. But Aaron says he's under restraint. Luke says he'll get inside his head. They go to Blake, who tells Luke he can't believe he came to see his old friend. Luke says he doesn't know who he is. He's not his friend, and he knows that for a fact, and Blake tells him not to be that way. Anderson asks how he should be after he killed his wife, and Luke introduces him to Kyle and Anderson and says they're there to help him. Blake says that them being there is help enough already. Tells him to sit. He says he'd shake their hands, but it's awkward as he's chained up, and I did like the dry humor that Blake had. I mean, obviously it's a demon talking, so it's not really funny, but I did kind of like they put in some dry humor here. So Anderson says that there's something inside him that made him do what he did, and asks if it's true, and says he wants to talk to Blake, not the thing inside him. The demon inside Blake talks about how he killed Terry. He says the warmness and wetness poured out onto the floor, and after a while it got cold, and he didn't like that, and it's a really disturbing scene just to think about. And Luke asks what the fuck happened to him, because this isn't the Blake that he knows. The Blake he knows, this is not who he was, playfully joking around with Terry, but not raping her. The Blake he knows is not capable of doing so. And Blake says that he was a good friend to him, such a good friend, and he wasn't at all, and Luke tells him to watch themselves and do what they have to do, because they don't have a lot of time, and yeah, they really don't, and again, you can tell that he doesn't really know what's going on. You can definitely tell that. So Megan's outside, sees a car, almost runs someone over. She then gets scared when she sees a man outside, clearly from her past, and we don't know who this man is, but she sees someone outside. The demon inside Blake then says to Kyle and Anderson he's being a terrible host, and asks them what they are. Anderson says that they're friends of Luke, and Blake says they're not Bible number and little sidekick. Luke would fucking hate a couple guys like him, and says he loves the guy, but he's not exactly spiritual. And Anderson asks if he loves the guy who killed his wife, and Blake says that there's a somewhat long, complicated story, and even if he was to tell them, he doesn't think they'd be able to comprehend it. And Kyle says that he'd be surprised, because really, I mean, the stuff they've dealt with so far, you don't think they'd be able to comprehend, but they have. And Anderson talks to him about the Bible and asks how it feels to have the Lord's words in his mouth. Blake says it makes him sick. Luke and him saw a lot of sin, more than he's ever seen in his line of work, but what turned to him was the forgiveness. He says people forgiving turn the other cheek, and they do it because it's the Christian thing to do. He says to look at his pathetic partner out there. He opened up his wife with his bare hands, and he wants to help him, and he doesn't understand that why he wants to help him. And Anderson starts the Lord's Prayer at Blake to no avail. Really, nothing seems to work here. Blake tells him to get it away from him, and I think this is the first time where the demon is openly refusing Anderson doing this. I mean, sure, Joshua's did, and Sarah's did as well, but, Sarah's didn't really do anything because Sarah was completely comatose, as we know, but nothing seems to be working. It just makes him convulse, but then realizes that he's playing around. Blake continues to make a mockery of him, and Anderson, believing him to be crazy and not possessed, he gives up, leaving Kyle to try his hand at it, because nothing really seems to be working. It's just not working for him, so Kyle continues to work with him. And Kyle asks Blake if he knows him. He then presses his hand to his forehead, burning him, and says, "You are Outcast." And again, we hear that word again, and we find a little bit more about what that means, which I did like. So Megan's then talking with a student who's getting bullied, and in the middle of it, she sees the man again and tells her to not let Amy, the student that's bullying her, cross her orbit, and Megan continues to tune out. She stares out the window, focusing heavily on this car, and we don't know who this man is, but clearly this is someone that Megan clearly has a history with, and work it out with Amy, and she tells the student to go back to class, work it out with Amy. Kyle then asks Blake what Outcast means. Blake says to stay away from him. Kyle asks why. Blake says the personal space is important here, and Kyle asks why he calls him that, and Blake asks if he ever had a lot of friends that loved to hang out at his house, which Kyle, of course, didn't, and it was just him and his mom, or someone bailed early. Maybe he doesn't remember, but what about after he seems like a good guy, plenty of work pals, drinking buddies, but then eventually gets uncomfortable around him, and the way the demon is really just, telling him all the things that Kyle knows and all the things he doesn't want to talk about. I mean, it really does show how the demon is torturing him, and Anderson comes back in, says that this is pointless. Blake asks if he's in charge, and Kyle says he's not. Blake asks what happened to the friends who stuck around, the ones who were close to maybe share a bed, and asks him how that turned out, and asks if he's still with someone, had any kids, and Kyle says he wants to stop this. Blake asks why, because he's special. Kyle asks if his mom never told him to keep his light under the bushel. Kyle punches him in the face and starts to attack because, of course, we know what he's been through. And Anderson grabs him. Kyle says he wants to throw his family away from some crusade. That's fine, but he wants his back. And I thought that was definitely a really great scene. I love the way that was done. Mark then walks up to the trailer. He goes inside of it to investigate, and you don't know what he's going to find inside of it. I love the uncertainty that you don't actually know if he's going to find any evidence. And Megan continues to look at the man in the car, goes to a hotel, and says a friend of hers has come to town. She wanted to know if he was here, yet his name revealed to be Donnie Hamill, and the receptionist says he checked in this morning. Megan asks what room he's in. The receptionist says she's not allowed to give that information out, but she can ring his room if she wants. And Megan says that she really wanted to see the look on his face when he opened the door because it's been like 16 years. And the woman says that she's not allowed to give that information out. Megan thanks her anyway. And again, you don't know who this man is, but clearly there's some sort of history he has with Megan. And it does not seem like a good history from the way she's talking. So then we see the man in the black hat who has revealed to be named Sidney. They actually promoted him to a series regular. I don't know if they did before. I also think that's kind of genius, though. He wasn't in the opening credits, and now he is because he was introduced, and I think it's kind of cool the way they did that. Especially because it's so hard to hide anything nowadays, but he's shaving his face, looking in a mirror, and just looking at him shaving his face, you can tell this man's up to no good, and after, especially, I keep thinking about what he said to Sarah, that I'm the one that did this to you, I feel like he's the one that did this, and Kyle is still with Blake and asks the demon if his family's safe around him. Blake asks what if the demon says no, what then he'll give up all hope of seeing them because of the work of a demon, and Blake asks if that's what he told him, he was a demon, and says not to listen to it. He knows that there are others like him, he's met them, and if he wants them to stop coming to him, he can make it happen. He'll put out the word. It will take some time, but it will happen eventually. And this is when things get really interesting. Because even though Kyle's there to stop the demon kind of makes him think that he might be able to stop these demons from coming to him. Because this is what's making Kyle's life hell. And Kyle says that that's horseshit, and Blake says that it gets lonely in there if he comes back there and he sees him once a week, then he'll make it happen. And Anderson comes in, tells Kyle that they have one job, and that is to send the demon back. You can tell that the demon's actually succeeding in distracting Kyle, and Anderson says he's believing he recognized something in that man, something wicked and deceiver, kissing cousin to the thing that destroys life. There's no way it would be of any help to them, really. I mean, Kyle is just delusional if he thinks that, and Anderson says that they need to stop playing fucking games and do what they were sent here to do. Anderson starts an exorcism. Blake mocks him. Anderson tells Kyle to put his hands on him like he did with Joshua. And Anderson asks if he's going to help him or not. And Kyle says no. Once he realizes, he walks away and they leave him in there to rot. Maybe he'll finally give them some answers. And he really feels that he could actually possibly get some answers out of this guy. He doesn't feel like he's joking around here. He thinks it might actually work. And Anderson says there's a mad soul there talking about, and Kyle walks away, Anderson goes after him, and then we get this fantastic scene with Luke, which, like I said, I think Luke really is a central character of this plot. Luke sees him leave, asks what happened, and Kyle says nothing. Luke asks what he means by that, and Kyle says to talk to Anderson, and Luke says forget about him. He asked around, and he's the one who saved the boy, and that's the only reason he's not in jail. He's the one with the power. And Kyle asks what he's talking about, and Luke asks if he thinks any of this makes any sense to him, because no, it doesn't. Demons, exorcisms, all the bullshit. I mean, it's kind of just come out of nowhere for him. He's just hearing now about demons and exorcisms, and Kyle asks why he's going to help him, and Luke says it's because it's all gone. With Terry butchered, he threw away his career, looking to explain what's happened to his best friend. If this doesn't work, he's got nothing else. And I love seeing this characterization of Luke, seeing him just so desperate, trying to get his friend back. It's this great story. Even though we're telling this great story about a man coming to terms with the demons of his past, we're also coming to terms with a man trying to get his friend back. And it's really a fantastic story that I really got invested in with that. I thought that was definitely very interesting. Megan then sees the clean lady leaving Donnie's room, and when no one notices, she sneaks in to investigate. While Mark continues to look at the trailer, he finds a fang on the roof and takes it as well as anything he sees, and Megan goes on the computer to find out what Donnie's doing now. Looks as if he's married with a kid. She sits on the bed, cries at whatever Donnie did to her, and we don't know what he did, but clearly whatever he did really traumatized her, and Mark then gets out the trailer. He sees a wolf literally growling at him, and Donnie's about to come back into the hotel room while Mark gives the wolf a treat, and luckily by the time that Donnie arrives, Megan's gone. Really great intense stuff there, really like that. Sidney then puts on his suit, and when he coughs, we see black goo come out of his mouth. He wipes into his cloth, puts on his hat, and we can tell he's definitely not human. I mean, the way that he just talks and everything, I think we knew that from the last episode, but definitely this confirms that whatever he is not human. I think we definitely see that here, and I really love that. I love the way they're setting up this character. I'm really invested, and I can't wait to see the direction that we're headed with him. So Anderson continues the exorcism as Blake continues to brutally mock him. He gets Anderson angrier and angrier, and the way that he's torturing Anderson and telling him he might never see your family again, and he puts the cross to his head, says he casts him out. Blake gruesomely breaks his hand out of the handcuffs, holds him at literally crucifix point, and Kyle and Luke come back. Blake says he will stick the cross through Anderson's throat, and Kyle asks why. Blake asks what else he has to do because his family's not safe. Anderson says to not listen to me, we'll never be free of them, and Kyle says that's not true. Blake says he's afraid of it is, but he knew that already. Kyle jumps him. The two fight until Kyle's blood drips into Blake's mouth, causing him to spit a black goo, and again, it actually does not work here. The demon is not out of Blake. It's still there, and it's really interesting that at this point they actually couldn't save him, and I thought it was definitely interesting that we saw that. And I think it's because Kyle gave in. Kyle actually listened to the demon. He actually thought the demon could help him, and I think that really ruined things for Kyle. So Mark then comes in with the evidence. Giles says it looks like he's had himself a productive day. Mark says he didn't get any clean points, but he did get some fibers, some hair that he's unsure is human or animal, and he was also able to test out all the blood stains as well as a watch, which does not look like something a teenager would wear, and if someone stole it, they're not going to leave it out there. And Giles is actually really surprised and impressed. He actually found a bunch of information, and with how much he found, the work he did, tells him he'll take it from here. He wants to put all the stuff in his office, including the report, and then get himself cleaned up. And again, you get the sense that Mark doesn't really understand all this. He doesn't really understand it. Giles clearly does, and we still don't really know why. We still don't really know why Giles knows all this stuff, if he's dealt with stuff before. I mean, we know he's worked with Anderson before. We know that. But how does he know all this stuff? We don't really know, and I like that. We don't really know how Giles knows all of his demon stuff before, and if he's dealt with this stuff before, and what kind of extent he had with it, which is very interesting. So Kyle and Anderson are leaving the prison. Kyle talks about how the demon said he'd never be free of this. Anderson says was manipulating him, trying to make him doubt himself, and Kyle asks if it made him doubt himself. And Aaron says not a bit, and he won't give up until they save the man. And Kyle says he can't be saved, and whatever is in him is here to stay, and they leave the prison. And again, it's really heartbreaking that they actually couldn't save him. But again, I think it's because Kyle gave in. And at night, we see Mark and Megan again are trying to have sex, only for Megan to experience seeing Donnie. And I guess we're to assume that Donnie raped Megan. I'm assuming that's what happened, that Donnie probably either raped Megan or he was a past lover and he was very aggressive. I don't really know, but Megan winces. Mark asks if he hurt her, and Megan says that she can't. Mark asks if she's okay. Megan says she is, but we can really tell she's not. There's clearly something more going on there that we don't know, and I like that we don't really know what's going on there. So Kyle's then back in his home. He sits and thinks about what the demon said to him, and also the fact that he actually couldn't save this guy. And I think he's also trying to think about how is he outcast? Why is he meant to do this? I think that overall is just really interesting. Luke then goes back to see Blake, who thanks him for letting Anderson and Kyle come over today. He has no idea what it's like to be by himself in a concrete box. And this really was just an incredible scene with Luke. I love the way this was done. Blake asks if he's right, he's going to help him get a new trial. Luke says he wanted to help him, and Blake asks why does it help when he saves his soul. But he walks away with a clear conscience. Poor old innocent Blake Morrow stuck here for the rest of his life, and it makes him crazy. And he says he didn't see it coming. All those dates with those women, he set him up when he knew how bad he wanted to stick it into Terry. And it did bother him how much he wanted to fuck Terry. And Luke puts his hand over, he literally puts his hand over his mouth. And you're thinking he's actually going to kill him. Like, he's basically on the verge of killing him. But he stops at the last moment before he does. He walks away, and I think it just goes back to, again, him saying you don't do things because you're a good Christian. And the demon calls him a pussy, and I kind of got the sense that Luke might kill himself, honestly, because like Luke said, he gave up his entire life to save his friend, and knowing that his friend is gone, I don't really know what else he's going to do. So Anderson then goes outside to look for the picture of his son before collapsing, realizing that it may be gone for good, and I didn't really understand what's going on here. This just didn't exactly work for me as much as I wanted to. I don't know if the picture's gone or if his son's gone. I don't really know. Kyle then visits Norville's house. We get to the very end of this episode, which is crazy. He's pounding on Norville's door. He discovers him dead in a chair. His wrists are cut, and the man with the hat, Sidney's blade, is on the floor. So Sidney definitely killed this man, and that is the way the episode ends. Crazy stuff overall, but let's just get into this episode. So overall, guys, another fantastic episode. I really love this one overall. And like I said, I really think we got into this idea of the demon not just being there to possess someone, but also to torture Kyle, emotionally make him feel that the demon can save him, when really it seems like if he gives into the demon cannot be saved. I mean, look at Blake, who's going to be tortured all his life, but you also have Luke, who did whatever he could to save his friend, and now I'm thinking is probably going to kill himself because he gave his entire life. And I don't know if we're going to see Blake again, but I feel like we're going to see these characters again because, let me tell you guys, they're not marked as guest stars. They're actually marked as recurring characters. Joshua was, and so was Blake, so I'm assuming we are going to see these characters again. I don't know in what capacity, but we are going to see them again. Nothing going on with Anderson and that woman that we saw in the last episode. I don't know if we're going to see her again. I'm sure we will, but we didn't see her again in this episode. We'll have to see what happens with that. Who was Donnie? Like, what did Donnie do to Megan? Did he rape her? What's going on there? That's going to be really interesting. Now that we know that Sidney has killed Norville, I am to assume that he's the one that is basically the head of all this. Like, he's the head of the snake. He's the one that's making all these demons come to Kyle. He's the one that did whatever happened to Sarah, and he's the reason why Kyle is the way he is today. I think that's really what's going on there. I think we definitely are getting the sense that's what's going on. Mark discovering things in the trailer, I was a bit surprised that he actually did find things. So now that Giles is doing this, how does Giles know what's going on? That's interesting. And I guess the only other question is, what was Anderson's relation with his son? Like, why does he need this picture so badly? That's going to be very interesting to see what's going on with that. But overall, guys, another really great episode. Not as much to say about this one, because like I said, it was very much a procedural episode, but I still was very much into it. I really did love it overall. A lot of really great stuff going on here. I know you guys saw this episode. If your thoughts on it, we'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for episode 4 of Outcast. I am finally going to watch it, which I heard was an incredible episode. I heard last night's was great as well. But I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.